just after our most recent election, and suddenly felt like I needed to do something bigger than myself. I needed to contribute somehow, and that's when I learned the global effects of the fashion industry.
That's Jillian Clark, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Kara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast, where I invite my favorite humans, the awesome, the up to something, and the extraordinary to come and share their story. I hope that you'll be left entertained, inspired, and moved to take action towards living your most powerful life. So many of us have been pivoting our businesses since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, Jillian's business was upcycled apparel. Her business, Roboro6, took in scrap materials from film sets, theaters, local factories, and more to create brand new, beautiful items. As she saw the impact of the pandemic spreading around the world, she pivoted to creating face masks and hasn't taken a day off yet. On this episode, we discuss her unique face mask business model that includes sponsoring masks for the medical community, how her past life of dance and theater brought her to LA, how learning more about the waste in film, TV, and fashion birthed her current business, and how now, more than ever, we all need to be more mindful of what we're consuming, spending, and wasting. All that and so much more coming up, but first. If you're interested in discovering what possibilities and businesses are available for you to create and to live your most fulfilling life, please visit thepowerfulladies.com/coaching and sign up for a free coaching consultation with me. There is no reason to wait another day to not be living your best life, when you instead could be running at full speed towards your wildest dreams today. All right, well, welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for being part of our recordings while in quarantine.
Yes, I mean, that's social distancing. We've got to keep it up.
Yes. Well, let's begin by, I'd love it if you would introduce yourself and tell everyone listening like who you are and what you're up to normally and what you're up to now with what's going on.
Yeah. So my name's Jillian Clark. I have a company, or I own a company called Roboro. We are an upcycled services and design studio, and our whole mission is to reduce textile waste.
Very cool.
Yeah. And what we're doing at the moment, as most people that own a fashion brand or a fabric company or a sewing machine, everyone's kind of taken to the call to arms to make masks, medical masks. And I'm now on week 3. I've completely transitioned my West Side studio, my workshop, into a medical mask manufacturing facility. So
I know it's so wild how quickly everyone has, pivoted because we've had to.
Mm-hmm.
And, one, why did you say I can provide, how quickly were you I can provide that service, I have to do this now? And then how easy has it been to transition your manufacturing into that? Because you were making lots of things before.
Yeah.
And now to streamline to one thing. How did it all happen?
How it started, honestly, was, I want to say, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, just before this really kicked off here. I was kind of watching what was going on, in Europe, and what made me, take a moment and pause and realize I was maybe going to have to re-strategize or shift was I had a lot of meetings lined up. I was going to start working with a manufacturer in downtown, which was exciting. For
downtown LA.
Downtown LA, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And those meetings started to get pushed back and then get canceled. I had a photo shoot scheduled that then got canceled. And it was kind of again, before everything kicked off, and I realized this is going to be big. And I'm a small business.
Yeah.
I still have side hustles. It's not bringing in a lot of revenue for me, and kind of had to realize yet. And so I had the realization, I was like, this is going to get big. This is going to get bad. And I could potentially lose the company, or I can re-strategize. I can think about like what I can do, how can I help, and how can I try and find a way to stay afloat. And there's a couple upcycled textile companies in China that I follow. And a couple of them started posting on Instagram that they were making just like fashion masks. They weren't advertising them as like non-medical. It was just, fashion tends to mirror society and what's going on. And so I was like, oh, that's funny. That's going to start to become like a fashion statement. And like kind of was toying with the idea for a minute. And then a couple days later, I started seeing posts, nurses, doctors running out of medical masks. I was like, well, this is something I can do. I can help. And so set up a program where customers can sponsor a medical mask. People who can't sew, everyone's wanting to help with this, but not everybody has the means. And so I thought if I'd set up a sponsorship program, it would give people who didn't have the means to sew the opportunity to support the mission. And kind of spent a morning checking in with my like moral compass, because I also was like not wanting it to appear like I was trying to like make money off of a crisis or anything, but like recognizing this is somewhere I could jump in. And it took off like a wildfire. Within the first 5 days, I had 1,000 masks sponsored. And then people started making requests for masks for themselves. And then, the LA mayor, Eric Garcetti, just recently made the announcement that all Angelenos should be wearing masks as they go out into public. And it's just been, balls to the wall since then.
Yeah. So I imagine you're working like 20-hour days.
Yeah, exactly. But luckily, as I had mentioned, I was starting to get systems in place to be able to scale. Being a small business, I was definitely positioning myself to scale up the operations. And so those pieces were kind of already in the works, which has actually made the transition much smoother. Like not easy by any means, but I did already kind of have some systems in place that has allowed me to take larger orders, to really like fulfill. Like I was worried the first couple of days that I wasn't going to be able to fulfill orders, and was disappointing because I had hospitals reaching out, and nurses and doctors. I mean, I've shipped already to Nebraska, Florida, Georgia. We got an order from Switzerland. And so I really wanted to find a way to contribute. And yes, so far so good.
And what's your website? So everyone that's listening right now is like ready to jump on and order some or sponsor.
Yeah. So our website is Roboro6. Roboro is spelled ROBORO 6.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And have you been surprised at like how simple it was to switch over, or have you been more surprised at how many people just jumped on? And suddenly, I imagine your website is having more attention now than it ever has.
What's funny is I didn't even have a website before this. So I've had the company for 3 years. I started the company in 2017. It's 3 years ago. But I had to rebrand it recently. We went through a whole name change, a whole rebrand. So the website was still just a landing page, because this rebrand happened just a couple months ago. And as I said, I still have to, the side hustles. It's a slow growth.
Yes.
And so I've just been functioning off of a landing page in my Instagram account. And when I even first started the masks, I just had people sending me through PayPal. I didn't even have an online shop set up. And it was like day 3 that I'm like manually tracking the orders through PayPal, putting them in a spreadsheet, like where's everything going? And then people were starting to email and text wanting like confirmation. It was like, oh no, I need to streamline this. I need to got an online shop up. And now all of again, that's one of the systems that's just made it possible for me to continue to turn these out and make sure my attention is where it needs to be. I'm not a particularly tech savvy person. So spending my time in spreadsheets and responding to emails and tracking all of that is not where I want my attention to be. I can do it. I don't enjoy doing it. So yeah, having that website up and having the shop live has been a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also proof that you don't need anything to start.
Right.
Like, so many people get stopped. Like, well, I'll start when I have a website, or I'll start when I have a logo. I'll start when I have.
Yeah.
But like, you don't. You're like, nope, I had an email and an Instagram.
Yeah.
Like,
I completely agree. It's really, that's how I started the company. When I first started it, it was called MeWe Clothing Brand. And just like had an idea. It's like, I'm just gonna start. I feel like you can always, like you're saying, you can always get caught up. You can kind of get in your own way. It's like, well, it's not perfect. It's not ready. And kind of my mindset is like, it's never going to be perfect and it's never going to be ready. I'm never going to be ready unless I just do it and figure it out. There's definitely been times where I wish I had maybe like been a little bit more prepared, but I've always managed to like land on my feet so far. So
yeah. How did you get into upcycling textiles and apparel?
So it kind of can't, as it seems like most small businesses come to life, I saw a problem and a gap that I had the means to address. I was actually listening to the podcast where you were interviewed recently, and you had started the nonprofit, helping people find funding for a nonprofit. And it sounds like you had the same approach of like, I tried to do this and it was difficult. So that's when I started a company. And that's exactly where Roboro came from. I was working in film. I'm actuI from Boston, which sounds like you also.
Congratulations.
Yes, and you. Yes, Boston Pride. I was working at the Boston Ballet Company in the costume department and working backstage, and was designing for some fringe theater companies. Was very involved in the theater community, and then came out to LA. I worked on a couple films in Boston, and kind of had my sights set on something a little bit bigger than regional theater. And came to LA and was working as a costume designer in TV, film, commercial. And it was a couple years after I was here that it started to really wear on me, and I was starting to become more and more aware of the amount of waste that was produced on film sets. Everything from like catering being thrown away to scripts being printed out every day for every department. Even, my own department costumes, just like we overbought. Or one thing that kind of I didn't really like, the system of buying and returning. I felt like it could, if you're buying from a small business, that hurt the small business. And then I also felt funny about working with these big budgets and supporting all these fast fashion brands. It's like, if we've got all of this money, why don't we support local businesses, small businesses? And it was funny. I'd always been in entertainment and the arts, and I had never really considered the business world like that. And it was like a fun new little like a hobby for me to start researching, and like started researching the fashion industry, which I had never really been interested in. I'd always been historical costume and theater. That was my world. Even though costume and fashion are so intertwined, it had never been much of an interest to me. So yeah, just like in an effort to look at the film industry and be like, how can I do this more sustainably? That's when I thought about like, I'm going to stop using the plastic water bottles on set. I'll bring my own water bottles, my own utensils. And, I'd talked with a couple different friends, who were also all in production. And we had an idea to make a short film, fully sustainable, and go to each department and figure out where their largest sources of waste were, address them, and make a film. And that would be the intention of the film. It wouldn't be like a documentary or anything. It'd be like a fictional story. And people loved the idea, but we couldn't get funding for it because sustainability, like to do something sustainably is always more expensive. So everyone was like, that's admirable. That's great. It's too expensive, which was a little discouraging. But also it was good. It readjusted my perspective. I decided to think a little bit smaller instead of tackling the film industry as a whole. I
Yeah,
went
from
back.
A to Z.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I'm slightly ambitious sometimes.
I appreciate it. Me too.
I went back to my skill set, my department, costumes. It's like, all right, let's dive into this fashion world a little bit more. Let me educate myself more on these companies that I'm supporting and who I'm shopping from. And I watched the documentary, The True Cost. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
It's one of those things. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Like that was now what I was doing. And so how it first started was in my design work. When I was designing, I no longer, I would talk to producers. I don't shop from fast fashion brands. Things will take me a little bit longer. I need more prep time. It will probably be more expensive, but that was just a decision I made for myself. And it probably impacted the type of jobs I was hired for because it does make things more expensive. But I felt more at peace with the work I was doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then kind of that idea just grew from there. Over the years, I had collected fabric from every theater company, TV show, movie that I had worked on. I had a room full of fabric. It's like, one day I'll make something with these things. And then realized I can upcycle production fabric into new products. That was it started as a hobby. Mm-hmm. Started talking to people about it. People were really excited by the idea. I was like, all right, this might be a thing. And then I applied for just a couple markets in LA. I think the very first market I did was Artisan Fleas in Venice on Abbot Kinney. Mm-hmm. And the response was great. People would come by the booth, and a lot of people didn't know what upcycling meant. They didn't know, the global effects of fast fashion. They didn't know that textile waste, was a problem. And so it was really that first summer that I started kind of doing markets was a great opportunity to chat with people and gauge the interest level. And that was 3 years ago.
And for people who don't know, what are some of the key factors of the waste in fashion and apparel, textiles, and fast fashion?
Yeah. So the easiest number to share that kind of shocks people the most is that fashion is the second most polluting industry, the first being oil. So we have oil and then fashion, which is at a glance hard to wrap your mind around. But then if you think about how many people there are, on the earth, everyone wears clothes of some sort, and it's usually you've got a closet full of clothing and you're constantly consuming and donating or throwing away. So it's just a constant cycle of consumption. And with the fast fashion industry growing at the rate it does, fast fashion being stores like H&M and Zara and Topshop, they have a really high turnaround.
Yeah.
It has increased our consumption. We're now expecting to get affordable, trendy clothes every other week. New styles. So that has only increased the amount of clothing that is being thrown away or donated. So it's starting to really choke our landfills. Countries that take our secondhand clothing have been burdened with a real increased amounts to the point that countries are starting to reject it. They're not taking it. So we have to find, waste solutions. So it all kind of ties into the same world as single-use plastic, people starting to recognize that this really amazing material that's made our lives super convenient, we're now surrounded by. And it's similar with fashion and not just fashion, but also textiles, just soft goods, fabric. When you throw it away, it doesn't go away. It just goes and sits in a landfill. And if it's not a natural fiber, it doesn't break down.
I know this is such a passion topic for me. So I worked in footwear and apparel for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it's so much fun to make stuff. And it's so frustrating to know how wasteful so much of it is.
Yeah.
And there's always been, for myself and a lot of my friends in the industry, this catch-22 of how can we make things and really love the process of making and balance it out with not being wasteful? And like, how can you find the joy in something new and not always make it feel like you're ruining the entire world by doing it?
Yeah, no, it's real. It's kind of, I've almost turned it into a game for myself.
Yeah.
I did like, as I was starting the company, I did kind of do a little bit of an overhaul on my lifestyle. I was like, well, let's dive into this. Let's figure out how to live plastic free. Let's try being zero waste, which is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I, kind of set myself a goal. I was going to buy everything secondhand, which of course you can't buy everything secondhand, but like, it's good to set a goal and then strive for it, even if you're not 100% there.
Yeah.
But anytime I have to buy something new, it's like a whole emotional roller coaster of like, can I find a sustainable and ethical brand to get it from? If I can't, then what's the lesser of two evils? It's a whole process. But it's also nice because then I don't have buyer's remorse. I know it. I've researched it and I'm happy with the decision I made. And it's totally taken away the impulse shopping.
Well, and there's so much behind all of it. So there's a great book. I don't know if you've read it yet. Inconspicuous Consumer or Consumption.
I do not. I'm gonna make
It's by
note.
Tatiana Schlossberg.
Okay.
It's relatively new. She's an environmental writer based in New York, and she really dives into 5 areas that most people can understand where all the waste is and kind of breaks it down.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize when you look at fashion waste, it's not just the garments themselves, it's the shipping and all the airplanes and boat shipping. It's the packaging for shipping, the packaging for getting it to customer.
Yeah.
The fact that half of fashion is using synthetic materials, which all ties back to oil, let alone like the waste that we see as individuals. Yeah. And when I was doing research for the financial and budgeting class that I teach, I was looking at trying to explain to people how being minimalistic in any area of your life, not only can it help the environment, but it can help your budget. But it was also looking at like giving people numbers that they could compare things to, because I hate when people throw numbers out, and they're doing that all the time right now with the news. Yeah. You see a number and it's like, is it big or small? I don't know, because there's no comparison. Like, it's horrible when anyone dies, but like, I don't know, like, what are other things people... Right. And so I want to make sure there was a comparison. And so I went back to the time when people had to be the most frugal, like the Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, most women had 26 items in their closet. Mm-hmm. Today, most women have over 200 items in their closet, but we only wear like 15. Yeah. Which is so, like, when you look at the gap, and there's so much that I find interesting in how we close the gap of having 200 plus things when you add in shoes, accessories, bags. Yeah. And people who had 26 and were fine. Because it speaks to like slowing down and making decisions or doing research. It speaks to like knowing who you are and what your style is and really what you wear. It speaks to like only choosing what you love, and kind of goes into the Marie Kondo space. Yes. It speaks to like, are you spending your money where your values are? And to me, it's such an interesting psychological thing to go into. And one of my favorite brands right now is the More Vert. They're I don't know if they're fully sustainable, but they're highly sustainable. Most things are made in the US. And I just like, every time I wear those clothes, I'm like, no, I love this and I can feel good. Like, it's not something that I thought about before, and it's like an extra bonus when I'm wearing that versus something else.
I love that. And that's like, it's something that I think most people don't give enough credit to. Aside from Roboro, as I mentioned, I'll still do like the production work, and I do like just like independent like styling and contracting work, and that's all been like a kind of a new channel for me, the kind of the input, like the consulting and whatnot. And it's all come together with this one. Basically, I was trying to find a way to tie in all of these different industries I've worked in. I now have a fashion brand, and I've worked in production, but I'm also like heavily ingrained in the sustainability world. And I was recently kind of sitting down, I was like, I feel like I need to give myself a mission statement. Like the way I've run Roboro, I was like, I need to do this for myself and understand what's like motivating me. And what I came to is what interests me is what we wear and why we wear it. Because I've never considered myself like a fashion person. I didn't go to fashion school. I'm not particularly interested in trends or fashion week or, you know, what the celebrities are wearing. What I'm interested in is what you just said, in that what people wear and the choices they make are specific to themselves, and it's specific to their values, their aesthetic, their, you know, what makes them feel confident. And realize that's the same thing that I was doing in entertainment. As a costume designer, you're reading a character on the page and you're finding a way to bring that character to life, to tell a story about them through what they wear. And like my personal values, I value, you know, sustainability and ethical business practices. So everything I wear has to represent that. It doesn't, maybe like someone I'm passing on the street isn't going to know that about my outfit, but I know it. And that's what's I find most interesting. Like recently, I've been listening to a lot of, you know, different podcasts, and there's a program. I actually don't know when it was started, but I know it's fairly recent at the London College of Fashion, the psychology of fashion, which I think is fascinating, because fashion, it's a commentary on society. It's like an anthropological study. It's a psychological study. And that is really, really interesting to me.
Same. Yeah. Anything that can cross over the economics and not like the financial economics, but because economics is really the study of the numbers behind the anthropology. So wherever you can cross over the economics and the anthropology and get to the why and the habits, like that is my favorite genre of all knowledge, like all of it. And so I think there is so much there to see. And we see the data being sold, right? Like Facebook has it, Google has it, Amazon has it. Like all these people are selling that data about us, but we don't know it about ourselves.
Right.
And for, at least in Western culture, when we're so obsessed with taking personality tests, and like I recommend Strength Finder to my clients because it shows you something, and there's Myers-Briggs and Enneagrams, like all these things. There's all this information that other people know about us more than we know now. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see that spin full circle, where what are we learning about ourselves that we can then use to make choices? Kind of like the most tangible example we have is when iPhone started tracking your time and telling you about it. They were already tracking it. We just didn't have the results. Now they're sharing the results, and now we get to choose, which I think is really where the democracy of tech and choices and buying habits and everything's going to come from. Like, what do you choose?
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that we don't choose every day because we're not paying attention to it. We're not present. We don't even know it's a choice we get to make.
Yeah.
So I think that whole world is fascinating. I also think what's really interesting is how we dispose of items. I'm a little bit obsessed with from when I lived in Germany, they are the number one ranking country for recycling. And I think part of the reason that they are is because they have every individual sorting their items. Like you have to sort it into paper, plastics, metals, glass, and glass is even sorted by color. Like you have to do it. Compost has to come out. They are really clear of like telling people where to put your stuff when you're done with it. It's not like you're done, put it in a trash can. It's like, no, it's done and it needs a second life. So you have to split it up. Like even things like taking the cap off of your toothpaste and it gets recycled separately than the tube. I'm fascinated by who is doing that recycling. Is it working? Is it not? And just if you look at just the trash industry in general in the US, like you mentioned, we send a lot of our trash to other people. And there are certain countries like China who are now rejecting our waste because they have enough of their own to deal with. So what are we doing with our waste? And where, like, how do we keep things out of the landfill? Like, to me, there's not enough steps. You know, like I'm always talking about sales funnels for people in their businesses. And this is so funny how it's switching between my consulting space and this financial class because it really overlaps. Because when you're trying to make money and you're in a bind, I tell everyone to like go through your house and like get rid of everything. And like, here's 100 ways to sell it for the most money before you donate it.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of ways.
Yeah.
But then once you donate it, there's still so many steps between donating and the trash that I don't think most people have visibility to or awareness. And it freaks me out over, I think it was like 2 days after Christmas this year, a guy, dressed, corporate, casual, knocks on my door and he gives me a flyer and it's from our local trash company. And it's telling everyone like, please sort your trash. Please pull out your compost because we do that here in Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
And because Orange County, California has like 10 of the largest landfills in the U.S.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what?
I didn't realize that.
I have the paper. I'll send you a screen grab of it later. But I was like,
that.
I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, we have Orange County is one of the wealthiest counties in the U.S. Why is it the largest landfill?
Yeah.
And why don't we have this stuff set up to deal with it? Like, most things that are in the landfill do not need to be there.
Right. 100%.
Makes me crazy.
I think it's it's visibility and transparency. It's kind of like what you were saying in that we're not aware, we're not present. We're so busy that, if there's a system in place where we don't have to think about it, that's what the majority of people are going to do. And just like it's just a societal difference here in the U.S. compared to places like, Europe or Australia that have kind of really taken the like sustainability mission to a whole new level that we haven't done here. Maybe different cities or different counties, but as far as like a countrywide movement, there's the quote, like, there's no such thing as away. When you throw something away, it doesn't just magically disappear. It goes somewhere. And for the most part, like I said, we ship it overseas. And now that countries are rejecting it and we're having to deal with it ourselves, we're starting to see how much we produce. It's so true that out of sight, out of mind. And now that the visibility is kind of being forced upon us, we're seeing this huge movement, no single-use plastic, no straws, no plastic bag. That's all new because China's not taking our recycling anymore. So we're having to figure it out. There's it's terrible. I can't remember the organization, but there's a handful of countries in Africa that we used to send all of our secondhand clothes to. And it was a year or two ago. They said, no more. We're going to rebuild our own textile industries. We're mostly sending low quality fast fashion clothes that they can't even resell. We're basically sending them waste. And that's been a huge hit. Now we have nowhere to send that. And that's going to, I think, lead to more and more people becoming aware. Like when you donate your clothing, if you drop it at the local Goodwill, only 20% stays in the US. 80% of your donated clothing is shipped abroad. So like that was one thing I set myself a mission of, was learning how to donate more responsibly and just realize that you need to donate to nonprofits that don't have the means to ship abroad. So I get a lot of secondhand clothing donated to Roboro, and anything I can't upcycle, I bring to the Downtown Women's Center. So like donating responsibly is all part of that like lifestyle change, but it's not easy.
It's not. And sometimes I get made fun of by my boyfriend, but in our garage, I have like, here's our box for e-waste stuff. Here's our, we try and like resell any clothing we can and we'll redonate it. And then we have a box of textiles that just need to be recycled or shredded or made into dog beds or something else, right? Like we're trying so hard not to like put things in the garbage if we can't. And I think I really encourage people to take on just try to have zero waste for 1 month. See if you can do it.
Yeah.
Or can you have one trash bag for a whole month?
Yeah.
And because when you realize that you're responsible for getting rid of all of your stuff, If somebody tries to give you packaging, you almost yell at them.
I don't want it.
Like, yeah, do not put that in my hand. Do not put that. I am not bringing that in my house. If it's in my house, I have to keep it. Like, no. But it really is a different perspective. And, there are so many ways that we can recycle great things, and we can, but a lot of it comes to keeping it clean, which is why I think Germany does such a great job, because if you're forced to separate cardboard or paper from other stuff, it's going to, especially from organic materials, it's going to stay cleaner, and then it can be recycled easier.
Exactly.
Whereas if you throw everything in a pile, some poor person or machine has to separate it. Who knows how good it is? And then you're stuck cleaning things before you can even start to recycle them.
Or you can't recycle them. Some, a lot of times things are like, the word's escaping me, but if you've got the takeout containers, that's why you can't recycle like greasy pizza boxes, because the grease will just ruin the whole batch. So it's, but it does get easier for anyone who's going to try and do the zero waste thing. Like, it does get easier. Like, my biggest heartbreaking sacrifice was Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's. Everything comes in a plastic bag. And I've had to there was a point where I finally had to make a decision. It's either I'm not buying things wrapped in plastic, or I'm not eating. And I need to eat. Yeah. So there are things where you're going to learn where your boundaries are. But there's, again, another quote of we don't need everyone doing, we don't need a million people. What is it? We don't need everyone doing zero waste perfectly. We need most people doing it imperfectly, or, something like that.
And one of the best gifts that my mother's ever given me, this year, she gave all of us a bunch of different size of the fruit bags, produce bags.
Yeah.
And they're awesome. We use them all the time.
Yeah.
And before, I just would never use one of those plastic bags because it was just dumb. But now it's actually really nice to be able to put them in a bag properly.
You don't just have 6 loose apples on the checkout.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. Or a cart full of things like that.
Yeah.
But it's great. And then another thing that I've switched over to is washable, reusable, instead of cotton for your face, textile pads.
Yep, those are great. I love the beeswax food wraps. It's the piece of cotton in the beeswax instead of saran wrap or plastic wrap.
Yeah, we're slowly transitioning all of our stuff out.
Yeah.
The most ridiculous one that I've tried is a washable Q-tips series.
I just got one of those.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, me too. It kind of weirds me out. So I'm I feel okay using it for things like makeup application or things like that. But I'm cleaning out your ears seems a bit strange. And then you use Q-tips for so many things, to put ointment on a wound, or I'm oh,
there's some things that you just need to be disposable. It's tough. I went through a phase of making my own toothpaste.
Yeah,
challenging myself, which is great. I was able to do it and it worked. Didn't taste great, and it definitely felt like I was brushing my teeth with mud. But it worked, and I tried it and I did it, and then it's you know what, I'm glad that I did it. Now let's find an option, because then I'd just run out of toothpaste and be I don't want to make more. So I've just now you've watered down. I found one that I can recycle the toothpaste tube, and that's just easier. And then there's the little toothpaste bites. There's so many options to fit your comfort level and whatnot.
I actually really found when we've done our own toothpaste recipe, we just do a blend of coconut oil, baking soda, and peppermint. That's our whole mix.
I do use the oil pulling with coconut oil. That was a game changer. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. But I find the baking soda is just great for teeth whitening in general.
Yeah, 100%. That was always part of my recipe. I think the one that I had there was some of the clay. And that's what gave it that really pleasant mud consistency.
So as we go into where your business was before it was masks, what type of products were you making? Where were you selling them? What could people expect if they're of course I want to be buying upcycled things? What were you offering?
So the way, I've structured the company is I design based around the materials I get. So all of the materials I use, it's all textile waste, whether that's dead stock fabric, end cuts or actual like little pieces of like scrap fabric that after big production cuts at factories normally will just be thrown away or, recycled or processed in some way. So I would just look at my fabric inventory and kind of decide like, oh, this is a really cool silky material that would make for a nice top or, that sort of thing. The most popular item, I do these up. I'll get secondhand denim jackets and embellish them with cactus. The most popular one has been a cactus pattern on the back. So I got these. I had this huge inventory of beautiful mud cloth scraps from a couple different home decor companies here in LA. And they're beautiful materials. And these companies, they held on to them because they didn't want to throw them away, but they were so small that they couldn't do anything with them. They made pillows and blankets and stuff. And I actually got the idea for the cactus jacket. I was on a trip, a New Year's trip to Mexico. And it was actually on this trip that I kind of like came up with the idea for the company. I'd already been making some stuff and like upcycling and had already tried to do the film. And I think I was sitting in like the Phoenix airport on a layover and finally was just like, I'm going to make some I think that's when we came up with the name. And having just come back from Mexico, I was like, I feel like I want to draw inspiration from where the colors, the tone, the patterns. And I had all of these beautiful materials. I kind of had the like Aztec-y patterns. And I had, been living in Southern California for a couple years, and a cactus was an easy pattern that was recognized by a silhouette. And it didn't matter what the material was. I could make a cactus silhouette out of any material and it would be immediately recognized. And so I did a couple samples and they looked cool. Like they came out pretty great. And like played with the design a bit, made a whole bunch, brought them to a market, and they were hugely popular. I mean, a denim jacket is already like a classic piece. If you've got a denim jacket with like a statement image, people love putting pins and patches. And then to share the story behind it of it's a secondhand garment and it's embellished with textile waste. It's like people love garments that have a story.
Yeah.
And upcycling, it's a process. It's labor intensive. So that it does tend to come with like a slightly higher price point. So something like a statement denim jacket, people are willing to spend a bit more. So that's definitely been our most popular item.
Very cool.
And then, yeah, again, like I said, like I was doing T-shirts, I was doing men's neckties, recently started doing more lifestyle goods, like tote bags and like yoga mat carriers. It's kind of the fun of working with textile waste is there's just like a world of options.
Yeah, you have the entire fashion and accessories world to tap into.
Yeah, I did have to give myself some like parameters. I realized when like, oh, I could literally make anything. That's kind of paralyzing. Yes. So I did have to come up with a way to give myself some, like I said, some parameters to stick within, and took the inspiration I got from that trip to Mexico. And at the time, my partner and I at the time were taking trips every New Year's, and we'd go to a different city, and realized like, I'm just going to use that trip each year to be the inspiration for that year. So the first year was Mexico. So it was the cactus jackets for that year and like the mud cloth. And that was kind of like the colors and the patterns. So at least if I was making a wide variety of products, at least the vibe was the same.
Yeah.
One year went to Quebec City in Canada. And I remember what I took away from that trip was I was really inspired by the way different countries really like beautifully lived side by side up there. We were in Canada, there's the indigenous population, there's the French population. And so that when I came back, had come up with this idea to do what's called re-roll fabric, where you take all the little pieces of fabric and you kind of puzzle piece them together. and stitch it, and it sounds like patchwork, but it creates this really beautiful texture and design. So that year I played with re-roll, and that was inspired from that trip. So that's kind of how I've at least the products I make sense together, even if they're kind of all over the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get into costume and to begin with back in Boston?
Yeah. I discovered costume while I was at school. I went to UMass Amherst out in Western Massachusetts, and I was originally a dance major. I was a ballet dancer all growing up, and it was my sophomore year of college. I was just taking a history gen ed class, and I had signed up for the history of fashion because it sounded more interesting than, I wasn't particularly interested in a world history class. This was just going to be an easy, I just wanted to get an A and move on. History of fashion, easy. And loved it. I found it it was not what I expected it to be. I expected it to be clothes and learning about designers and whatnot, which it was partially that, but it was much more a study on how world events impacted fashion, how world wars, the Depression, women's rights, all of these things impacted fashion. And I had never looked at the industry. I'd never looked at clothing through that lens. I found it really interesting. And my professor had recommended that I take a couple costume design classes. She's like, well, if you like this, you might like this. And so, and I had never been a theater person, ballet and theater, they go hand in hand, but I was a dancer. I didn't, I wasn't necessarily behind the scenes. I was always the performer.
You weren't part of the drama. You were a dancer.
Yeah, yes, exactly. She says with an air of drama. I just really took to the costume design. I liked the way that dancing, you translated an emotion to the stage. You could do the same with clothing for an actor. And I switched majors. I left the dance program and joined a program called the BDIC, which is a bachelor's degree with individual concentration. You basically get to build your own major. And I've always, looking back, as you reflect back on your life and realize this is definitely a trend throughout my life where I don't take the linear route. I'm oh, well, that is what most people are doing. Let me make it more difficult for myself. I'll do it this way. So that was definitely an example. I had to choose my own major title, choose my own requirements. Of course, you worked with mentors and whatnot. But
you still had rules to follow. But
really, it was kind of your own making. So I graduated with a degree in design for theater and dance, with a focus on costumes. And when I graduated, I didn't, I went and spent a summer at a theater festival. I just I dove into every opportunity I could. I spent a semester abroad in London and took an internship at a theater company in Notting Hill so I could learn about running a box office and setting up a theater, all these things I didn't know. And so I really just dove into it. I moved, after I graduated, I moved to London for 6 months just to everyone needs that headspace clearing time after 4 years at school. Came back and went into Boston and went around to all the companies that had costume departments. I went to the ART at Harvard. I went to the Huntington Theater at Boston University. I went to the Boston Ballet Company and just do you have internships? Can I come in? Can I learn? Can I get some on-job, on-site training? And the ballet company called me back, which was kind of a dream considering I had been a ballet dancer and Boston Ballet was always the goal. So it felt kind of poetic that the company I always wanted to work at, I now was working at, potentially, in a different capacity than I had originally imagined. And I was there for 4 years and to this day is probably one of my favorite jobs that I had. And started in the costume shop, transitioned into, splitting my time between the costume shop and working backstage as the assistant wardrobe supervisor. Started designing small theater productions, which was a lot of fun. And then, there's a couple movies a year come through Boston. I PA'd on a couple films. And I mean, honestly, what sold me on film was they fed you. They don't do that in theater.
Yeah.
This is great. They pay for my gas and they feed me. I moved to LA. Of course, more thought went into it than that. But And that's came out to LA and just tried my hand at television and film. I just kind of kept like leveling up the costume design game. And then, everything, I mean, realistically, everything changed after our most recent election. Suddenly felt like I needed to do something bigger than myself. I needed to contribute somehow. And that's when I learned the global effects of the fashion industry. It's like, well, I think this is now what I'm doing.
I think a lot of people kind of have gotten onto that path as well of seeing that if you don't like the way something is happening or working, or it can be done better, how can you do something about it? Yeah. And I love that's how a lot of people feel right now. And I also love asking the question, going back to our conversation a little bit earlier, of how do we make it all happen?
Yeah.
So how can we make new, beautiful items and still love all the, parts of fashion that have no sustainability thoughts at all? Like, how can we just make things look amazing and exciting and people be like a yes?
Yeah.
But how can we do that plus be sustainable and plus be responsible? And how can we do it all? Like you said earlier that sometimes you fall into the space of being too ambitious.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good. Like, how do we get more people there? Like, how do we check every box?
Yeah.
Because that's where the fun is. That's where changing something completely is going to be. Even now someone quickly invented a method to sanitize the medical face masks.
Uh-huh.
Like they've just come up with a way to do it where they basically hang them all in a thing and steam them. Mm-hmm. Or I do not know if steaming is the correct term, but it's basically they go into a chamber and they get cleansed and they come out. And they can still use them a couple of times, not forever, but you get to use them more.
That's something.
And it really is this, necessity is the mother of invention time.
Yeah.
And whether it's for your own business or for what we need to do on the front lines right now, I think so many of us feel this strange bipolarism in what's happening because most of us are in our house doing whatever we can to keep our business going or keep our sanity or keep some sort of normalcy.
Yeah.
And it can be so far removed from what's happening in a hospital right now.
Right.
And the people in the hospital have no idea what's really happening for people who are at home. Like, I've been working so hard since this happened, so many hours, that whenever I hear people be talking about being bored, I'm like, just stop talking. Be really glad that you're bored. Be grateful that you are bored and that's where you're at, because I don't know anyone right now that's bored. Everyone I know is working their ass off. And then we are even the people who aren't battling it on the front line. So those people are exhausted. They're not sleeping. They're not eating. They don't even get to pee sometimes because they can't change their PPE.
Right.
So it's I don't think people are realizing the depth of sacrifice that a very small percentage of people are making for us right now so that we have the privilege to stay home.
To stay home and be bored and have Zoom happy hours with our friends.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely a line of we need to bring some of that reality to everyone else. And I think also if we compare it to World War II, everyone felt like they could do something to contribute. Mm-hmm. And I think what's beautiful about your company right now is you're giving people an option to participate.
Yeah.
Some people, all they can do, my parents, all they can do is stay home and avoid everyone.
Yeah.
But
it's the best thing they can do.
Right. But what they can do is go online and sponsor some masks and still be a contribution without risking themselves or somebody else.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you for making that a possibility for people.
My absolute pleasure. I just grateful to be able to help to help the people that are actually like keeping us all safe to have something to keep me occupied and busy, because I don't deal well with like having nothing to do, as
Me
you know,
either.
I think anyone who's kind of entrepreneurial mindset, they need to be busy.
Yes.
So like that has been helping me with like just my mental health and sanity. But yeah, it feels good to contribute and to help, and I wanted other people to have that same feeling. So I'm grateful that the sponsorship program is offering that to people.
Yeah. How many masks are you producing a day?
So if I'm like really cranking through them by myself, without, having to do the social posts and the responding and the tracking, I can get through about 50 masks a day on my own. But of course, I'm never just cranking through without having to do the social and the keeping up. So I've been working on some here. I mentioned a manufacturer in downtown LA who's been like a lifesaver. They've been really great to work with. And then I've had just like a couple friends volunteering, again, people who can sew, who are like, can I help? Is there anything I can do? So the system's in place right now is I've got a couple different teams working on them at once. But yeah, I personally can crank through about 50 a day.
Yeah. And then if people put an order in today, about how long is the lead time to get their order fulfilled? And I'm sure it matters their quantity, but like what's the rough turn time?
So if you're getting one so I have two options. You can sponsor a mask where you pay and then they're donated to a hospital. And those ones are being made by the factory in downtown. And those ones, it's about a week. And the personal masks, because the quantities are lower, you can sponsor, 1 to 10 I've had people sponsoring 100 masks. So that takes a little bit longer. Personal masks, I can get out in about a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I think the first round of people who put in orders would argue differently. They probably took them about 2 weeks or so. But now that the systems are in place and the workflow is going, it's a much smoother turnaround time.
Well, I still think that you should give yourself credit for having a 2-week lead time when you initially pivoted and now you're down to 1 within 2 weeks. You are scaling faster than a lot of other industries. So good job. When you look back at your life and the path you've taken and who you were as a kid and everything, would anyone have predicted that this is what you were doing now?
I don't know if they would have predicted this specifically. I think probably wouldn't be surprised that it's something aesthetically driven, that it's something that is wanting to help in some way, like wanting to help people, wanting to help the planet, wanting to do good. Like, I think there was like a short while where I considered like the nonprofit sector, but like I also, my mom's worked in nonprofits for a long time, and I've just seen that while it's rewarding work, it's not always financially rewarding.
Yeah.
And like that just wasn't, I've got student loan debt, I've got bills to pay, like that just wasn't necessarily an option. And I was always curious if there was a way to do good and pay your bills. And so there is. It's very exciting. So yeah, I don't think anyone would be surprised to see that this is the unique setup I've managed to curate for myself.
Yeah. We ask everyone on the podcast where they rate themselves on the Powerful Ladies scale. 0 being average everyday human and 10 being, exceptional powerful lady. Where do you feel on average? Where do you feel today? And I think I'm going to even ask you for a double today number, because how would you have put yourself on average before the pandemic happened? And how would you put yourself now that you're in full mask making pivot mode?
All right. So on average, I would say, like at least recently, the past year. So I'd probably put myself up at like a 7 or like, I think a 7's probably like a good average.
Okay.
Because like, everyone's a little like self-critical sometimes, but like you talk yourself out of that headspace. I think, and then what were the two you wanted me to double today?
Well,
Before
yeah.
pandemic and
Before pandemic, after pandemic, and today.
yeah.
So before sounds like a 7.
Before probably like a 7. On a good day, like a good day, 8. I think now, since pandemic, I think I've been feeling particularly at the risk of sounding, I don't know, conceited, like an 8 or a 9 even. The fact that I've like, it's been scary. Like there's definitely been days where I've had like meltdowns and like, I'm not going to be able to fulfill this. I'm making promises I can't keep. And I've impressed myself that I've been able to figure it out. And each challenge that has presented itself, I'll have like a little meltdown, and then I have to pick myself up and then figure it out. And it's been 2 or 3 weeks now, so it's still like a very short period of time. But yeah, I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm pretty proud of myself. And today I'd put myself at like an 8 or a 9 because, like I said, I gave myself today as a break, and I haven't been really good at that the past couple weeks. It's very much just like, I just need to keep going. I need to keep going. People have placed orders. I need to get these out. Like the doctors and nurses aren't taking breaks. Like, and if I'm wanting to help, like, who am I in thinking that I deserve a night with like a glass of wine and Netflix?
Yeah.
But like, if you don't give yourself a break and a rest, then you'll burn out, and it's not sustainable. And it's just, hurting myself and hurting the cause in the long run. So like today, even like allowing myself a little break, I feel pretty like empowered by. So yeah, I think I've been feeling, it's just weird in such like a strange, difficult time. It has been like a weird silver lining that I feel like I've risen to a challenge.
No, it's
like
I
the
think
silver
people
lining
have,
is for the situation, I suppose.
yes,
Like the world global situation.
I think it's so important, one, to always be finding the silver linings. And if some people want to call it the purpose of why it's happening or whatever, right, you want to frame it up at. But there really always is a lesson or a positive thing that you're getting out of every experience, as hard as some of them can be. But I think that people get confused about happiness and where that comes from. And to me, it comes from like having confidence and contentment in who you are and what you're up to. And the only way that you get confidence is through, like you said, rising through a challenge, and it's super hard and you figure it out and you're like, oh, I can do that. And you get to like put it in your belt, and then you go on to the next thing. But you have to go through that hard phase in order to get the confidence, which allows you to have the happiness. And I think so many people are trying to skip that and just be happy. And I'm like, no. Like it's it's like a reward. It's not something you can just generate by like by being like still. But that's like not in the opposite way of like, you can be happy in yoga and meditation. Like that's a different thing. That's like a present, like harnessing of it. But in regards to expansion, happiness, you really have to go through that, either climb the mountain or go through the fire to earn it as a badge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You have to appreciate it, to appreciate like, oh, I got here. I did it. If it's just handed to you, if it just comes easily, you don't have the same level of appreciation. You don't, it's you don't
even acknowledge it half the time.
Exactly. You're not aware. It just blows past you, and like it's also then not a lesson that you can take on to the next time you run into a challenge. If you've been completely challenge free, when you do finally run into something, you don't have the tools to handle that. So, yeah.
Who are some women that have inspired you along the way?
Oh, goodness. I mean, so many. Like I had mentioned, like my mom has worked in the nonprofit, and like any mother-daughter relationship, we definitely, like my teenage years, they probably weren't great for her. But she's definitely one who has had to overcome a lot. She hasn't had like an easy go of it,
Mm-hmm.
but she always figures it out. And that's been, it's been a good thing for me to watch. And like, especially like, I think any woman who's come from earlier generations too, like, my mom is a strong feminist, and she's what I, learned, what feminism was. And coming from a different generation, I feel like I kind of owe it to the women who did that sort of work earlier to keep up that fight, because otherwise it was all for naught.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that kind of learning from her, and learning from like the struggles she went through, and seeing how she overcame. In my like professional life, or like right now, I'm hugely inspired by Greta Thunberg. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
she is, just put herself on the world stage, and is taking, praise and abuse, and being, a young girl to withstand that, and to stand up for what she believes in. I think that is giving, a whole generation of kids someone to look up to. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, like, with the political state the way it is, with the climate the way it is, the people who are going to have the biggest impact is that generation. And I think it's incredibly brave what she's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm inspired by people who stand for what they believe in, even in the face of adversity, is very admirable.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's listening who like doesn't know what they believe in yet, or feels like that it's an area that they need to dive into, again, it's like the similar thing. It's like, read some books, watch some, there's so many documentaries on Netflix on every different topic, or, go into Google or call someone that that, to see what they're passionate about. I'm always amazed at what other people are really committed to.
Yeah.
We recently recorded with Melissa DeMont, and she's a badass at like a whole nother level, but then she's saying how she volunteers. And she's like, she already has a full schedule. And she's like, yeah, Big Brothers and this and Happy Period. Like, she literally listed like 10 things that she does. And I'm like, I think you are a whole nother level of human with how much time you apparently make out of a day.
I was impressed by those people.
Right? There's so many like amazing things. And I think that if there's something that upsets you or calls to you, like lean in and do the research, like just like you did.
Yeah, just something like it could be sparked by an interest. It doesn't, like, you're not even going into it thinking it'll be a passion. And your passion also doesn't have to be a cause. Like, you can be passionate about your friends. Be the best friend you can possibly be there for your family. Like, I think a lot of people, when they talk about like their passion or their mission, people think it needs to be something, a big global cause. It doesn't have to be.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, as long as you're whatever it is that you love, do that wholeheartedly.
I couldn't agree more. As we wrap up today, is there anything that we didn't get to talk about that you really want everyone listening to know or to go explore?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I mean, right now, I think being the time that we're in, just stay home. One, stay home, stay safe, check in on your parents, check in on your grandparents.
Buy yourself a mask.
Buy yourself a mask, sponsor masks. If you have those N95 masks, donate them to your local hospital. And just like, be good to each other. Everyone is sitting at home on their computers, on social media, And, I've been going through and reading comments on like different posts and whatnot. And like people get very brave behind a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And, right now is when we need to be caring and supportive and show that, like, again, in the face of adversity, like humans are good people. Like we have the ability to love and support and be there for each other. And I think it's important in times like this that that's what we choose to do instead of, the negative and, the internet trolls and, just be good to each other.
Incredible. Well, this has been such an honor. So nice to meet you. So great to be able to share your story. It's so important what you're doing right now. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Part of what I love about having this podcast is that I have the honor to showcase amazing people like Jillian. People who are working hard, making a difference, all while being intentional and aspirational. You can take on what seem like big issues or big problems to solve. Start exactly where you are and start by changing what you can. It's the small changes that add up for you and over time and for the world. I love that Jillian has given us a way to be a contribution to the front lines while we stay home and protect each other. To connect, support, follow, and buy masks from Jillian today, you can visit her website, roboro6.com, or you can email her hello@roboro6.com. We will also have links to her website, her email, her Instagram, and her Facebook, all on the show notes, which can be found at thepowerfulladies.com/podcast. Stay home and stay safe. I hope you've enjoyed this new episode of the Powerful Ladies podcast. If you're a yes to Powerful Ladies and want to support us, you can subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating and leave a powerful review on Apple Podcasts. You can also be one of our Patreons for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/powerful ladies. We can get access to exclusive content that we're making just for you. Follow us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. And of course, visit our website, thepowerfulladies.com, for all the latest news, details, and updates. I'd like to thank our producer and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. Without her, this wouldn't be possible. You can follow her on Instagram at Jordan K. Duffy. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love. This episode of The Powerful Ladies is made possible by our Patreon subscribers. Did you know that for as little as $1 a month, you can support this podcast? You can send us love, tell us that you want more. You can support all of our events and all that we're doing in the world to fulfill on our full circle of empowerment. It starts at $1 a month. That's less than the coffee you're drinking a day. And there's so many more levels that give you more bonuses and fun things and behind the scenes information. So go to our Patreon, patreon.com/powerfulladies, and support us today. Thank you in advance.